My name is Dale Crawford, and I teach illustration here at Amore College of Design. And I am an illustrator, graphic designer, and fine art painter. Illustration, simply defined, is drawing and painting for commercial purposes. Throughout my career, I have worked in many different styles, techniques, and subject matter for the client's needs or for different markets. But the project that I want to discuss today is something I did recently. It's an illustrated mantel clock. This project was an exercise in self-expression, learning through experimentation, and ultimately for a gallery exhibition. I began the brainstorming process by use of tiny thumbnail sketches and researching the subject of time and imagery associated with clocks throughout history. I then moved on to a rough sketch using exact measurements of the clock panels to be illustrated. Throughout history, animated clocks and ornamental clocks have used skulls and skeletons as representation of our own mortality. So I decided to use a skull in this, and the tree is a symbol of life. I wanted to use a banner in the bottom panel to help balance out the skull and to add an old world decorative quality to the illustration. And I used the Eye of Providence, it just seemed to fit in that top triangular shape very nicely. I then executed a detailed pencil drawing on Arch's hot press watercolor paper. I then added sepia watercolor washes to deepen the tones and to darken the values. Then an all-over wash was applied to darken the values even further. When I began adding color, I realized that I needed to darken the values and enrichen the colors even further to harmonize with the stained wood of the clock cabinet. So I decided to switch to using oil paint, but before I could do that, I needed to seal the paper with clear acrylic matte medium. I did this by applying 2 thin coats with a flat brush. So once that was completely dry, I began applying an oil glaze. An oil glaze is oil paint thinned with painting medium, in this case liquid, which is a quick drying medium for oil paint. It looks pretty scary there because I've covered up much of what I've already illustrated. I then can remove the excess paint with a paper towel, and you can see the glaze is much smoother. Before the glaze was dry, I used a small brush to pull out the lights even further in smaller areas. So here's the finished underpainting. An underpainting helps an artist reach a desired value range and makes the overall painting process much more simple. It's a lot like sketching on a mid-value colored paper. Now here's the painting almost completed, and because of the well-developed underpainting, it didn't require that much paint to finish it out. The next step was to cut out the illustration to fit into the clock panels. I did this by cutting small pieces of cardstock and taping them together into the panels to create the patterns, and then using an X-Acto blade, cutting out the precise measurements of the illustration. So here's the finished product. Once the panels were applied, I added more details, and you can see at the bottom I added a Spanish proverb which roughly translates to "time will tell." If you'd like to see more of my work, you can visit me at crawfordad.com or crawfordfineart.com. Thanks.